Hey friends, welcome back to Sewing from Scratch, and those of you who are new, big welcome. I am Kate, and this is where I teach you everything I know about sewing and we learn more together along the way. Today I am excited to share with you the Ivy Pinafore. It is a brand new pattern. I'm not really a pinafore type person, so why am I sewing a pinafore? Well, you might be familiar with Sheer Stitchery. Catherine Harris is another YouTuber, sewing YouTuber, and she's also from Canada, just like I am. And she just launched a pattern line, or she's working on building her pattern line, and she was looking for brand ambassadors. So I thought I would apply because, you know, fellow Canadian sewing person, I want to support her, and I got accepted. And her first pattern is the Ivy Pinafore. And again, I'm not really a pinafore person. I love the look of them. So I thought, okay, well, maybe this is a great opportunity for me to kind of take that pattern, a pinafore pattern, and kind of adapt it to be more what I would wear. So we're gonna hack the Ivy Pinafore to fit more of what my inspiration photos were. Now, all I did was I went on Pinterest and I scrolled for pinafore. Actually, I think I might have searched summer pinafore, and I came up with a couple different options. I really love this blue one. It is like a dream. I just love all of it. That length of skirt doesn't look the greatest on me because I am shorter. I would have went full maxi, but we'll get to that in a minute. I do love the front of it as well. However, because I have broader shoulders and a much larger bust than this model, I didn't think I would really be able to pull that off. So then I saw this picture and I really liked the deep V of it and how it hugged her body. Again, my bust is much larger, but I thought it would be kind of good to mash these two together. Now, this is the pinafore. I am wearing it. There are some things that I don't love about the finish, but we'll talk about that at the end. Just keep that in mind while you're watching that. Like, I realize this isn't perfect, but we're gonna talk about that as we do this. So, what did we have to do to alter the Ivy Pinafore pattern to get to where I am now? Before we get into this, I do just want to mention that I do have a discount code for you to get 20% off of this pattern for the first 2 weeks of its release. So you can get 20% off of the Ivy Pinafore pattern from Sheer Stitchery. So the fabric I chose for this is something I had in my stash that I don't know that I would didn't think I would ever use. It's a polyester and it was gifted to me. So I really don't know what it is, but to me it feels like dress pants, I guess. And I think it might be called suiting, polyester suiting, but it's really nice and flowy and drapey, and it's the look I was going for. So I am quite happy with it, other than it's polyester. But the downside was I didn't have enough to make a maxi skirt, which is what I would have preferred. But how it turned out is I'm actually quite happy with the length and everything. Again, there does need to be some adjustments in the bodice, but we'll talk about that at the end. So looking at the inspiration, the main things I wanted were the buttons down the back. I really love the look of that. I wanted the wide straps coming over the shoulders and being wider set on the back of the body. And I wanted the deep V. Those were kind of the three things that I wanted to change about the original pattern. And it was a lot of trial and error. I made a muslin. You're gonna see some of that fit stuff going on. Ultimately, I did end up changing a lot from where I started with my muslin. So I think what you need to do is make a muslin, of course. But you're gonna see kind of the general alterations that I made, again, to get the deep V, to get the buttons in the back and all of that. And then at the end, we're going to talk about what worked, what didn't work, what I think I'm going to change because I do like this and I am going to wear it, and how you can have success for when you're making this yourself. My measurements put me into size 14, I believe, and I went with the curvier version, and it's big. If I were to have sewn this just as is without the button overlap, it would be too big. You can see there is some room in here, which it's comfortable, but I think for pinafore, if I was going with, yeah, I think it could be tighter. And the bodice is definitely large, and I think a lot of my problems could have been solved had I sized down 1 or 2 sizes. So we'll talk about that a little bit more again at the end, but just making a muslin will help you determine if you're in the right size range and if you want to size up or down from there. Okay, so in the end, what I ended up doing with my skirt here was I really didn't alter the skirt too much. Originally I made like a placket and everything to go on here, and it was just way too big. So I took that all off, and then I just used the original skirt pattern, but instead of doing a zipper, I just added on a facing. So I used the same seam allowance that was already on the pattern, but I just drafted about a 6 centimeter wide facing strip to go down the entire length of the skirt. So then the back center of the skirt actually overlapped about 4.5 centimeters, and that was the width I wanted it to be to accommodate the buttons and the buttonholes. You'll notice in the inspiration photos that the skirt, it doesn't have darts in it, it has pleats. And so that's what I ended up doing. Instead of using the darts that were in the pattern, I used the same markings, but instead of darting them, I just pleated them. So I think it's called a box pleat. I'm not sure if it's a box pleat or an inverted box pleat, but that's what I ended up doing. So I just did pleats on the skirt, in the 2 in the front and then the 2 in the back. And so that was different than the original, but I mean, not really, because it's going to give it's going to take in the skirt the same amount to fit the same waistband, so you really don't have to alter that. Speaking of the waistband, I didn't make any alterations on it. The only kind of hang up was when I was attaching the skirt to it, because then yeah, things just got kind of crazy because the skirt was already finished at the back center where the facing attaches, but then the waistband wasn't. So I kind of had to like finish the waistband and then slip the skirt into it and then sew it up. So it's not like, nobody will notice, but it's not the exact way that I like to finish things, I guess. But I'm also not really sure how I would have finished that otherwise. I didn't end up doing a liner in the bodice, but I did line the waistband just to give it a nice clean finish on the inside. I don't really like seeing exposed seams, raw seams. Even when they're serged, it's just not as pretty as like totally clean. So I did end up doing the lining in the waistband just to hide all of that. And when I was sewing the facing onto the bottom of the skirt, I just sewed it along the bottom of the hem of the skirt as well at a 2.5 centimeter seam allowance, that'll help give it a nice finish when I go to hem it, so that the hem kind of part of the skirt is hidden inside of the facing there. This is a trick I learned, and it just gives such a nice clean finish. Once I had the skirt done, to attach it to the waistband, I just kind of sandwiched it between the outer waistband and the lining of the waistband, and then I sewed them right sides together and I was able to flip it up. I did not top stitch it, and I might still go back and do that just to match where it connects to the bodice. I actually kind of like it not top stitched, and I'm not finding any funny movement or shifting or anything like that, so I'm not sure that it would need to be top stitched. I don't think the inspiration photo has pockets, I can't say for certain, but I did add the side seam pockets in this pattern. I did not do the patch pockets on the front. Not really, just something I gravitate towards, but I am happy with the patch pockets. They are a different color because I didn't have enough of the navy fabric, but they are hidden inside, like you can't see them really at all. So I do like the pockets. They're in a perfect place on my body, and yeah, would really recommend doing pockets. So to construct the skirt, the first thing I did was I put the pleats together. So again, just matched up those notches and then did a little pleat there. Then I added the pockets onto the skirt pieces themselves, all 4 pocket pieces onto the 2 back skirt pieces and the front skirt piece, and then sewed them up on the side seams going around the pockets. Then I added the facings to the back of the skirt. Again, like I said, what's going to become our button plackets. And then I constructed my waistband. So the waistband comes in a front piece and then 2 back pieces. I sewed those together, both for the lining and the outer. Then I laid down one of those pieces, laid the skirt on top of that, and then the other waistband piece, making sure that the outer waistband and my skirt were right sides together. It really didn't matter in this case because my lining was the same fabric as my outer fabric, but if you're using 2 different fabrics, make sure that the right side of your skirt is right sides together with your outer waistband. Now, you could totally stop here. If you don't like the look of the bodice part and you don't want to like a pinafore, your skirt would be essentially almost complete. I would probably do the waistband a little bit different. I would probably stitch the top part together and then I would attach it to the skirt front, just the outer waistband part to the skirt front, and then flip it over, have that skirt liner bottom part folded up, ironed up, and then top stitch it on to, or stitch in the ditch to the skirt part. But really any way you do it would be just fine, and I think this would make an adorable skirt. In fact, I might be making one in the near future in a maxi version. And the pattern does come with skirt instructions as well, so if you're not into pinafores, you would have the skirt as well. Okay, now for the bodice. This is where obviously I made the most adjustments. So the first thing I did was I measured on my body how high I wanted, where I needed it to sit on my shoulder compared to if it was just the original pattern pinafore bodice. And then I kind of went from there. So I made sure to give myself lots of room, and I could always cut off after. Again, I made a muslin for this reason. So I ended up originally adding 18 centimeters, but I didn't need that much. So then I measured kind of where my shoulder point was, and then how high I wanted this bottom part to be, because I didn't want the V to go right into the waistband. I wanted it to be one piece on the bodice. So then I ended up doing 5 centimeters from the bottom of the pattern piece up to the bottom of the V. And then I went from that point up to my shoulder point and made a diagonal line. Now again, I do end up altering this a lot, but the end result is that I ended up raising up the bodice itself. I was having a ton of issues with how it was fitting, so I just made it curve up in the center of the bodice, which is quite strange. I mean, here's the original pattern piece, and here's how mine ended up looking in the end. And I did play around with making the darts pleats instead on the bodice, but this just didn't work for me. Again, maybe if I would have sized down, it would have been better, but there was just seemed like a lot of bulk there, and it wasn't that smooth, nice line that I was looking for. So in the end, I did actually keep the same darts that are in the pattern piece. I did not alter them at all, other than we added width to the top, so I did have to extend that dart. So I ended up making the straps 10 centimeters wide, and I think I probably could have taken them in a little bit more. You can see that it hangs over just a little bit. It's just a little bit too wide on my shoulder, but I think also part of the problem here is that my shoulder slope seam isn't accurate, so if I could take in just some on the outside, that might be better as well. But I wanted the coverage on the bust here, so I actually ended up doing it a little bit wider here and then grading it in a little bit towards the shoulder, which worked out quite well, other than I should have done a little more. And again, you're seeing a lot of bagginess here, or maybe you're not, but I am, and I think that could be all remedied just by taking it in the center here, which is why I think that maybe I should have sized down a couple sizes. This is actually a fairly easy fix. I just need to seam rip the waistband and then take this in. It will mean that it becomes now essentially a two-piece bodice top, but that's fine with me. So how I finished this, because I didn't use a lining, is I actually did bias tape, and I wanted to keep the same 1.5 centimeter 5/8 seam allowance. So I made some really wide bias tape, and I'm not crazy about the finish of this on the inside, but from the outside it is quite sleek, and I'm happy with it from there. I did mess up on the V. I don't know, I should have just done it the way I know how, but I was trying a different way that I didn't look up, and it didn't turn out great, but you can't really tell from the front. And then I just made sure to make the straps long enough in the back that I could adjust them, and I just kept fitting and cutting off as necessary, pinning, cutting off, that kind of thing. But I did want to make sure that the shoulder seam sat right on the top of my shoulder. And again, they are maybe a little bit too long as they are. There's some things that need to be addressed. So once I had the skirt completed, to attach the bodice, what I did was I sewed the bodice right sides together with the outer skirt and then flipped it up. So it's only attached to the outer skirt at this point and only to this point. It doesn't go all the way around. So then I put it on, and I, figured out where I wanted the straps to be. Again, I wanted them quite wide on the back of me, kind of just straight down from my shoulders, and pinned them in place, figured that out. And then I flipped up the waistband liner and I top stitched everything closed that way. And I'm actually really happy with the finish of that. I was worried about the top stitching line, but I actually kind of like it. And it gave a really nice finish to the bodice. Everything fit in there perfectly. There was no issues. So that is how I altered the Ivy Pinafore to be more like my inspiration photos. So overall, yes, I am happy with it. I love the button choice that I picked down the back there. I'm really happy with what I chose. I just love the skirt is I'm enamored with the skirt. It is wonderful. The bodice, again, needs some work. Honestly, I didn't even want to share this because it's not perfect, and you can see right here, it gives me like these crazy wide shoulders, which I don't need help in that department. I already have wide shoulders. It could totally be a look, but the other thing is they're too loose, like they fall off very easily. So there definitely needs to be some adjustments there as already, and then I think, again, a lot of it could be fixed just from going in, taking in the center here. So like I said, I was really hesitant to even share this with you, but then I thought, you know what? This is sewing. This is part of learning a craft. This is part of altering. This is part of hacking and creating your own looks. And I think it's really important to share it. So I wanted to share this just so that you're not discouraged, or, you know, maybe you are. I was discouraged about this too, but ultimately there's a lot of great structure and bones here that just needs to be tweaked a little bit. So I want that to be a lesson to you, I guess, that it doesn't have to be perfect. And it's probably never going to be perfect, but you can find things in your makes that you like and then build upon those. And just don't be scared to try things. You know, social media is amazing for seeing all these beautiful makes and getting inspired and feeling creative, but it can also be really paralyzing because we see all these things and we think, wow, those makes are so perfect. These sewers are just like top notch and I'm never going to get to that point. And that's just not reality. So I wanted to share a little bit of reality and that, you know, it takes a long time to get to that point. And even these professional extreme seamstresses and expert sewists, I guarantee you their sewing practice isn't flawless, and I guarantee you that when they're creating new things, they don't go perfectly. You know, pattern designers have to work through things, right? If you've ever been a pattern tester for a designer, you know that it's usually not perfect when you work through it. You help that designer to work out those kinks. So I just want you to know that don't be scared to take the risk, because the reward it's pretty awesome. Once you get over that hurdle of thinking, oh, I can't do that. You can do anything. There's really no rules. So I hope this is helpful in getting you to realize that. And if you check out the Ivy Pinafore, make sure you use that discount code so that you can save 20% on it. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Go check out Sheer Stitchery as well. Again, a fellow Canadian. She's just one province over from me, so we're actually pretty close in, you know, the grand scheme of things. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!